Hello, everyone. My name is J.R. Meek. I am the marketing coordinator for Travel Wrangle and the City and Borough of Wrangle. I am the co-event organizer alongside Claire Foliage with the Forest Service. And we're getting ready for our Stikine River Birding Festival. That's going to happen on Wednesday, April 22nd to Sunday, April 26th. So we have week-long events ready for you, and then even a couple events before. But one thing I want to highlight today is that what we do every year is get a festival speaker to bring into Wrangell, Alaska to do a presentation on one or many of our Stikine river bird species. And to this year, we have the bald eagles presentation that will be done by Dr. Michael Wydra. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
No,
Wierda?
it's Wierda, just like you would.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I knew I was going to get that wrong, but that's all right. That's why we got this little get to know you presentation. It's just so that way people get to know the speaker before our upcoming presentation that's going to happen on Friday, April 24th from 5:30 p.m. in the Nolan Center. And so, Mike, go ahead and introduce yourself to us. Like, who are you? Where are you currently at? And just some general details on your presentation.
Sounds good. So my name's Michael Wierda. I am the director of the Pesticide Safety Education Program for Utah State University. I am from Michigan originally, but I live and work in Utah now. My background, my terminal degree, the Ph.D., was in wildlife or environmental toxicology, and that's when I started working with bald eagles. So we use bald eagles to track legacy pollutants, PCBs, DDTs, other old school organochlorines in the aquatic ecosystems of Michigan. Lots has happened with the eagle samples. So what I will be talking about for my presentation is basically looking at 40 years of eagle research in Michigan, the eagle recovery that has happened in Michigan and nationwide, and looking into the future for potential new problems that are coming down the pipe for bald eagles in Michigan and at large.
Yeah, very nice. Well, it's great to have you come up to Wrangell and then present to our greater Wrangell community. And so, what I want to get into, like a few questions, is just for right now. We'll move on to the topic of your personal connection to the topic of our presentation. So, I guess what drew you into studying environmental toxicology?
Ultimately, it was an opportunity to do it. I was a master's student at Northern Michigan University, wrapping up my master's on foraging ecology and pileated woodpeckers, and I was looking for an opportunity. I was trying to get into population genetics, preferably working with birds and most preferably with raptors. And I was offered the opportunity to become a PhD student at Clemson University in South Carolina and do ecotoxicology on bald eagles. And the funding was available for me to do the population genetics should I want to, which I did want to, but after about a year or so, maybe 2 years of trying to do it, one of my advisors finally convinced me that trying to do two PhDs at once was a bad plan, so I should just focus on the toxicology, which is what I did.
Yeah, about to say I do applaud you for your ambition. Yeah, about to say two PhDs. That's definitely quite an ambitious goal, but hey,
Yeah.
we're glad you got your subject degree. And so I guess why bald eagles for this subject of the presentation.
Um, I mean, bald eagles are the one of the main species I work with. I've done research in the past on three different species of birds specifically. I worked with the American woodcock, then the pileated woodpecker, and then bald eagles. And bald eagles is what I've sort of stuck with. I ran the program for about 5 years while I was a PhD student. Then I moved on to work and life and whatnot. And a few years ago got called back into the research because there was a need for field crews. So I decided I would go back and continue to work with this charismatic megafauna that people seem to pay a lot of attention to. So it's a fun project and it's a great species to work with. I'm a big fan.
About to say, Wrangell community is definitely a huge fan for bald eagles, particularly. I know people on social media just love posting pictures of bald eagles, so it's definitely a very popular and sensitive topic for our community members. So appreciate you coming out here to discuss about bald eagles. And I guess for Utah State University, what is it like working with them for this program? And just like a bit more detail just about the pesticide safety education program.
Yeah, so I run our pesticide safety education program. I also make up the entire staff that is the pesticide safety education program. And there's one of me in every state. So at the state
Mhm.
universities, at the ag universities, at the extension universities, you'll find a pesticide safety education program coordinator at most universities. The programs are mandated by FIFRA and they focus on educating professional pesticide applicators on safe and legal application of pesticides. So I don't do pest management, I don't do crop management and stuff like that. Once somebody knows what they want to use and then they have questions about how to do it safely, that's where I come in and I help them understand how to apply legally and safely. I often tell people that my job in a nutshell is reminding people to read the labels, wear their PPE, and don't be dumb.
Makes sense, yeah. Well, thank you very much for just divulging to the personal connection to the subject of our presentation. And now just want to highlight about your trip to Wrangell. So how did you hear about Wrangell, Alaska and the Stikine River Birding Festival?
I was actually contacted by an old office mate from when I was a postdoc at the University of Arizona when I had a short window of time where I did actually do population genetics work on bald eagles. It's
Mm.
actually your co-planner, Claire's mom. I used to share an office with Claire's mom, and we talked about eagles because that's what I had done and was working on, and she remembered me all of I think 14 years later. So I got an email from her asking if I would be interested, to which I said, of course, that sounds like a great time. And that's how I learned about this festival. So it'll be all new and different to me when I arrive.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you come to Wrangell, Alaska, and for the festival and just to see our community. And so you've kind of already talked about like
Yeah.
making a trip and becoming our festival speaker, so we'll skip that. But what are you looking forward to the most during your trip to Wrangell? Like bird walk, story time, walking through Tongass, Patrick Woods Beach, etc.
I mean, just seeing Wrangell and seeing this corner of the United States, seeing Alaska. I actually have a trip planned with my brother in September to go up to Cooper's Landing for a fly fishing trip. So I thought that was going to be my first ever visit to Alaska, and then this opportunity popped up. So I went from never being in Alaska to going to Alaska twice in 1 year, which is, I think, fun and interesting. So I'm interested in the bird walks. The story times sound good. Going to the Tonga National Forest is very interesting to me. With the eagle work, I spent a lot of time climbing trees, so I'm very interested in trees and forests and stuff like that. Also, some of my past work with pileated woodpeckers really got me into trees also. So I'm looking forward to seeing the area. I do plan on throwing a fly rod or two into the travel bag with me. So if some sort of opportunity comes up in that window, I would jump on it. And if you have any suggestions for people to contact, I'm all ears.
Oh, very nice. And yeah, I'll definitely get with you just about like contacts and whatnot. But yeah, very exciting. Glad that you're going to be making even a second trip to Alaska. So glad that this will be your first and then already making a trip. So we hope you have a lot of fun during your two trips here to Alaska.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyways, let's go ahead and divulge into probably about more for the community and just like awareness for pesticides. And how about what should communities like Wrangell, where wildlife and fisheries are central to identity and economy, be paying attention to when it relates to pesticides?
Well, I don't think you'll be surprised to find out that this answer is the same answer I give almost everybody when it comes to using pesticides. They need to read the labeling, follow the directions, and wear the PPE. If you do those things, you can use pesticides and use them effectively and fairly safely. If you don't read the labeling and just go out and do whatever you want, you can really have some detrimental effects on you, your environment, and your community. So being diligent and reading the directions, reading the labeling, and following the directions is really the key thing when it comes to working with pesticides.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for that. And I guess for like a interesting question, are pesticides today different compared to those that was probably used about 40 years ago or even 30 years ago? And if so, are we safer or are we just facing different risks?
So pesticides are different. They're evolving with time. They are getting much more specific. Pesticides in the olden days used to be um, non-selective. So if you had an insecticide, it would kill all insects. Now we're getting much more specific with how pesticides work. So they can be directed at the target organism and the target organism only. That said, I won't say that any chemistry is safe. As we learn in toxicology, the dose makes the poison. If you do it wrong enough with anything, it can have detrimental effects. If you drink too much water, it can kill you. So you need to be mindful of what you're using and how you're using it. And again, it goes back to that previous question. You got to read the labeling and follow the directions, whatever you're using.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you for that.
Mhm.
And I guess what is one thing like everyday people can do to like either protect themselves, the wildlife, or just like a good safety practice that people should bear in mind?
I think one of the biggest ways that we can help protect wildlife and natural areas is going out and getting yourself a hunting or fishing license. That money goes to conservation. It helps support conservation, and you're going to learn when you're out there doing whatever it is you're doing, fishing, hunting. You're going to learn respect, and you're going to learn the value of the natural environment. So I think that's a big thing. And just, be a steward. Don't be a dummy.
Yeah, thank you for that. And speaking of conservation, if you could give one piece of advice to the next generation of scientists and conservationists, what would it be?
It's the thing that I look for whenever when I used to teach regular classes with students and stuff like that. The thing I always look for was for the students and the people to become critical thinkers. No matter what field you're in or what ability you need to have the ability to question and critically think about what you're being told. It's a very valuable trait. You're not always going to be right, and that's something else you need to really accept. I'm a huge fan of being wrong. Every time I'm wrong, I get to learn something new. So really, what I really want from people is to be critical thinkers who look at the information they're being fed and then consider the resources or consider the source, pardon me, and then move forward with thinking about it. Don't just take it as gospel.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, I do agree. Just being a critical thinker is just very important, whether that's in science or marketing,
Yeah,
conservation, everywhere.
yeah, shopping.
And so, yeah, and shopping, that's another good one. But since we do have a little bit of time, I just kind of want to do a little bit of some extra questions. Since you've been working in the field, have you encountered like any big misconception when it relates to pesticides?
So one common misconception these days is that organic pesticides are safe. It's
Hmm.
still a pesticide. It just happens to be organic. Some organic pesticides come with more warnings than a synthetic pesticide. So just because you're using something organic doesn't mean you can throw the directions away and not pay attention anymore. You still need to follow the labeling, follow the directions, and wear the appropriate PPE when you're working with this stuff. One of the things I often say to people when we get into this discussion is organic doesn't mean safe. Cyanide is organic and it will kill you in a heartbeat.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, that's just kind of interesting to hear, but I guess it still ties back into like the point you've been hitting in this interview is just reading the label.
Yep.
So that thank you for like tying that all together. And have you had like a most surprising finding during your research?
So when I was doing the bald eagle work, the steady decline of the PCBs, DDTs, organochlorines, lead, and stuff like that, wasn't really a surprise. I was in there for 5 years. It had been going on for 20 plus years before I got involved. So the trend existed. One of the biggest surprises I've had doing the eagle research was actually just this past summer when I climbed into a nest and found 4 healthy eaglets in a single nest, all of which fledged and moved on. So 1 to 2 is the common find for eagles. 3 has become more common. 4 is generally unheard of. So popping my head over that nest and seeing 4 little heads staring back at me was quite a surprise. I counted those birds, I think, 12 times before I yelled down we had 4 eagles because I was like, no, I can't be right. And I just kept recounting.
Well, that's like a really great, surprising find to hear, and it's always just happy to hear about it's just good news about wildlife. And
Yeah, I got a
speaking
really
of
good
just like,
picture of those guys that you'll see in Wrangell in the presentation. So
oh, very nice. Well, looking forward to that. And so, just thank you very much for just popping in and answering a few questions. And so, let's go ahead and close out this interview with our last question. I guess after studying environmental toxicology for a long time, what still gives you hope for the environment and the impacts to wildlife?
um the working with people, the one of the things that really surprised me when I first started this work is that the farmers are very, very diligent and very, very frugal with their pesticide use. The last thing they want to do is actually go out and spray because it costs them money and time. They would rather grow all natural, but to produce the fruit that we all want to see, they have to do these sort of things.
Hmm.
So the fact that there is that going on, and when you give talks to people and you talk about this safety topic, the fact that people are engaged and have questions about it, they're interested in it. If I go to a conference or I go to a normal class or a CEU event, there's usually someone talking about the new hot products that are out there and all this interesting stuff. And then I show up and talk about safety. Unless UDAF or the Department of Agriculture is there talking about law, I have the most boring topic of the day. But people pay attention, they're engaged, and they have questions. So that gives me hope. Just the fact that they seem to actually care about the environment and what they're doing, and they want to do it right. So I think our products are changing. Some are for the better, some are for the worse, but people who are spraying are paying attention and they're trying to do it in the best way they can.
Yeah, that is a great answer to just wrap up our interview. So thank you, Dr. Mike, just for coming on board, just entertain me with a couple of questions and also just to get the Wrangle community to know a little bit more about you, your research, your work, and then just a prelude into your presentation. And just to wrap it up, for everyone who made it to the end, his presentation will be on Friday, April 24th at 5:30 p.m. in the Nolan Center. So we hope everyone who came and watched this little interview we hope that you get to make it and then get to learn more about pesticide safety and just impacts and especially on bald eagles. I know he's going to have some great pictures on bald eagles. So if anything else, you can just come and see that. All right, Mike, do you have any closing thoughts or? words
Yeah,
before we
I'm very much looking forward to coming to the festival and meeting people and the organizers and talking about bald eagles. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. There will be a little bit of chemistry and a little bit of ecotoxicology in there, but it's a very small amount, so don't worry. We'll mostly be talking about cute baby birds and recovery and stuff like that.
All right. Thank you for the closing remarks, Mike. And if anyone does have just any general questions, whether this is about the presentation that's going to happen or just in Birdfest in general, please reach out to info@travelwrangle.com, and I'll make sure to try to get back to you as soon as I can. Mike, thank you very much for being a part of this interview, and we're excited to have you come to Wrangle in April.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the help getting everything organized too for this trip. It's made my life a lot easier just relying on you.
Yeah, it's no worries. Claire and I have been working hard, and we're excited to see how Birdfest goes for 2026. All right, for everyone in the Wrangle community, thank you, and we hope you have fun participating in Stikine River Birding Fest.